This video was brought to you by War Thunder. More details to come soon. So, I've been replaying the main series of Sonic games, updating my footage to feature the original versions of the games and all that good stuff. But then I also caught wind of this video on Sonic CD by Sparky's World. It's a 7-hour analysis on CD, link will be in the description. I thought it was a really intelligent defense of Sonic CD, and in one of the segments he talks about how Sonic's gameplay evolved and iterated on concepts far removed from what CD was trying to do. Not that a different approach was bad, it's just that it's different. Specifically, the portion on Adventure 2 got me thinking of my own video idea. SA2 was a lot different from previous games, and I think I settled on what it was that made it work for me. Today I wanted to briefly cover the most important element of Sonic Adventure 2 and how subsequent Sonic games went on to handle it. The ranking system. All the Sonic games before SA2 had a score system, but getting the best score had nothing to do with a reward. You pursued that if you felt like it. In the classic games, and in Sonic Adventure, I think the joy of playing as Sonic largely came from his moveset and seeing what you could do with it to shave your time down and find all the hidden secrets that each level contained. But Sonic Adventure 2 was a considerable paradigm shift. If you're familiar with the discussion around SA2, you'll know that the levels are far more linear and action-oriented than SA1. The main series began to rely on set pieces more and more as it went along. It allowed the designers to set each stage apart. By Sonic Adventure 1, you'd have whole stages that were, in part, fun jungle gyms to test out Sonic's movement, but were also loaded up with flashy visual gimmicks that don't require much in the way of interactivity. SA2 doubling down on that. This sounds like a downgrade, but I think the way this game does it is a valid way to design Sonic nevertheless. And then the series' future attempts to continue this showed mixed results. But anyway, in SA2, each stage ends with a breakdown of your stats, your score, your clear time, your ring count, your ring bonus, and the total. The lowest you can get is an E, and the highest is an A. Getting high ranks in SA2 takes a lot of practice and familiarity with the mechanics. It also really transforms stages that are otherwise pretty basic. When just looking at the Sonic and Shadow levels, many are single paths to run on, but the devil is in the details. Look at Pyramid Cave, for example. I can't say this is the greatest level I've ever played, because there are multiple segments where you run through a big loop with no interactivity, but getting an A rank is where a lot of the fun comes from. Running down these hallways, you need to jump through hoops to get extra points, but only have so much time to do it before the door shuts and you need to go back to the top to try again. And then you'll need to try and get through the other segments as quickly as possible, like this part where you have to grab a key and bring it back to the door. Pyramid Cave is a stage I can keep replaying over and over because performing well keeps me engaged with the level. And that's one of SA2's stages that I don't like as much as the rest. The other Sonic and Shadow levels provide depth throughout, with little moments and opportunities to play as stylishly as possible. In City Escape, you maximize your points by having the right speed to do tricks off these ramps. Getting the full point bonus on this part takes practice. It's also important to remember the timing of the gun truck chase, where there are ramps to jump off of while Sonic is running towards the screen. In Radical Highway, you can do cool tricks like jump around this vertical tunnel and receive an invincibility box, or jumping on top of these loops to find a hidden spring that takes you to the top of the Golden Gate Bridge. Shadow can then grind along it and get stylish points, where otherwise you need to run along the ground. Replaying these speed stages again and again gives you the chance to perfect your runs and consistently get the highest ranks. You need to take advantage of every opportunity to get more stylish points. You need to go fast and also collect a lot of rings. If you skip out on any of those things or die, the A rank is gone. Metal Harbor is one of my all-time favorite 3D Sonic levels, and it truly is a straight line from start to finish, but along the way, light dashing onto grind rails for points is satisfying, as is the rocket climb at the end. You only have so much time to reach the top, but you need to make a choice at the end. You can find a spot early to jump on the missile, which is pretty easy to do. Or you can keep climbing to get more points and rings, and reach the top with almost no time to spare. If you succeed, you get 1500 points. If you fail, you need to start the level again to get the A rank. That's the kind of design I can get super addicted to, and I did. SA2 is on the list of Sonic games where I got the best rank in every stage, which includes all 5 missions for each level. The ranking system makes the Sonic and Shadow levels of SA2 a more active play experience than the Sonic levels of SA1. But the best example of how the ranking system is the most crucial mechanic in Adventure 2 is not the Sonic and Shadow levels, though. Tails and Dr. Eggman blast through stages in Mech Walkers, and Knuckles and Rouge search for collectibles. And here's where things get interesting. In my video on SA2 from 2020, I went into how I thought these systems were huge improvements on the shooting and exploration levels of SA1. That first starts with level design created with these mechanics in mind, but then the grade at the end of the stage maximizes the potential for replay value. In a shooting level from SA1, racking up high combo points was useful for extending your time limit, but the levels were so easy and short that it wouldn't even matter if you just ran past everything. In SA2, enemies are arranged and designed to be targeted all at once, and the higher your combo is, the more points you get. It's really satisfying to do this on its own, but is crucial to getting A ranks as Tails and Dr. Eggman. It also comes with a dash of risk versus reward gameplay, since if you take a hit while locking onto a bunch of enemies, you don't get the points. Knuckles and Rouge stages provide the most challenge, as you need to grab a hint to find an emerald piece quickly, but you don't want to use too many hints since that lowers your rank, so it comes down to knowing the level design well enough to where the first vague hint will be somewhat easy to understand without needing further assistance, and then repeating the process for all 3 pieces. Doing it in a timely manner is how you get the A rank. I've always thought that replayability was one of the core pillars of Sonic's game design. SA2 was a game that embodied that more than most others for me because of this ranking system. It's easy to understand, and it doesn't really ask a lot of you in theory, but then figuring out how best to perfect each and every stage was a process. Some were more fun than others, as Mission Street or Eternal Engine aren't fun no matter what, but then this only enhances great levels like Green Forest. It helps that the designers created unique A rank requirements for each stage, so each one will be its own puzzle to figure out. One of the best levels, Cosmic Wall, had its score requirement increased for when the game got re-released, since the original score target was too low given how easy it is to get points in this level. By now, I hope you see what I'm getting at. SA2 is simply built different. The game was doing a lot differently from any Sonic game that ever came before, but I think this scoring system is actually the one mechanic that ties the entire game together, and going after the A ranks is how you can get the most out of the experience. It had enough of an impact on the series that every game after it had a ranking system, and that's where things get interesting to compare and contrast. But before I even think about getting into any of that, we gotta talk about War Thunder, the sponsor of today's video. War Thunder is the most all-encompassing, vehicular combat game the industry has yet seen, and it is available now on PC and consoles for free. Players can control over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from a plethora of major countries, ranging from the biplanes of the early 20th century to the fighter jets and tanks of today. Every vehicle is super well modeled and detailed down to the last component, with an in-depth damage system for each one, and you can fully customize your gear too for increased player choice. The game has detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sounds that make it an incredibly immersive experience for all players. Today, you can join over 70 million of those players in PvP battles and experience all the game has to offer. If you like military history, I can think of no better game to play. So if you're interested, which I know you are, you're gonna wanna mosey on over to the link in the description and or the pinned comment and get in on the action. The game is, I remind, entirely free and is on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. If you use my link to sign up, you'll get the massive bonus pack rewarded to new and returning players that haven't been playing the game for 6 months. With it, you'll get a selection of premium vehicles and an exclusive vehicle decorator, the Eagle of Valor, which comes with 100,000 silver lions and a 7-day premium account. Available for a limited time only. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. I've gotten all the best rankings in Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic 06, Sonic Unleashed, in the main levels, not the extra stages, Sonic Colors, and Sonic Generations. So I want to look at these games and how they handle it to reaffirm how well SA2 did it and why challenging ranks is a crucial system for all Sonic games. Sonic Heroes is a game I could complement for similar reasons as SA2. Each stage ranks players from A to E with different requirements depending on what team you picked. Team Rose is easy, Team Sonic is in the middle, and Team Dark is harder. Team Chaotix is mission-based gameplay instead of the stage-to-stage action of the others. Sonic Heroes also adds boss ranks to the mix that are purely based on clear time. In a vacuum, what I like about Heroes is that it only features speed gameplay for its whole runtime, but I'm sure you expected me to say, what drags the A-rank experience of Heroes way down is the game's unpolished nature. Of all the games developed by Sonic Team, Heroes might be the second most janky and unpolished behind 06. This is an external factor that doesn't really correlate to the ranking system, one might think, but it's an overall issue that affects every area of Sonic Heroes, a game I enjoy nevertheless. It's not like most Sonic games are super polished anyway. Even in SA2, levels like Crazy Gadget or Mad Space or Final Chase would suffer from some janky programming. But Heroes is next level with how random and chaotic it can get. You might die at the end of a stage for a reason that makes no sense, like not jumping off of a vine you definitely jumped off of, or missing a homing attack you definitely were in range of. That's annoying when casually playing, but is infuriating when trying to fully complete the game. The programming is fighting against the player for almost the whole duration of the game. Adding time-based boss ranks is a good idea, just not in a game where team battles can take 2 seconds or 2 minutes depending on how cooperative the AI is. But in principle, Heroes checks off many of the boxes that SA2 established. Plus, the level design is more open-ended than SA2, giving you some room for experimentation and replayability that the games prior to SA2 had. Which is why I think Heroes is a fun game at the end of the day. I like the movement opportunities in this game and enjoy the team gameplay, but when fully completing it, the jank factor definitely gives SA2 a significant leg up in comparison. As I said, I've also fully A-ranked Shadow the Hedgehog. It's hard to even understand what went wrong with this game's grading system. The intent behind the game was for it to be the most hardcore Sonic game yet, and despite that, it's one of the easiest games in the series to fully complete. To do it, you need to get an A rank in every mission for every level. That's about 23 stages and 2 to 3 missions per each one. But it's completely broken. Levels will have a hero, neutral, and dark mission. Getting an A in a neutral mission just forces you to get to the end semi-competently. You get hero points by fighting the bad guys and dark points by fighting the good guys. In most missions, it's really hard to screw up. I've had some missions where I had slightly more dark points than hero points and still got an A in the hero mission and vice versa. You can spend like 20 minutes on the bomb-chasing mission of Mad Matrix and still get an A. In most stages, the only way to lose out on the A rank is if you bumble around for too long or just went full tilt villain in a hero mission. But all that is pretty hard to achieve, because I've died in this game right at the end of a stage and still gotten an A. The only exceptions are the 5 missions from the Doom and Lost Impact, the 2 worst levels in the game. They're both giant mazes in the Ark where the mission objectives are looking for targets that may as well be needles in a haystack. Of course, these are the missions that decide to get tough on the grading as you need to sweep through the missions pretty quickly. As stated before, I'm not really sure what went wrong with the A ranks in Shadow, but it's the complete opposite of SA2. Ranks feel meaningless, stages aren't really that exciting in this game anyway, but then perfecting it just feels more like busy work than an experience where you learn the ropes of the game and become a master. Most missions you'll A rank first try if you're familiar with Sonic gameplay, so the challenge is just putting the time in to get the A for every mission. By now I think you understand where I'm going with this, just looking at where SA2 got it right and where Shadow got it wrong, but let's look at some more examples. Sonic 06 took a one-size-fits-all approach that I don't think worked. It's a lot more consistent and logical than Shadow the Hedgehog, but I still think it fails. In 06, getting an S rank, the new top grade, you need to get 50,000 points in a stage and 30,000 points in a boss fight. With how rushed and unfinished Sonic 06 is, perhaps this was a quick way to have a ranking system without it requiring dev time to be spent on what requirements would make the most out of each stage. But with the way 06 works, it's super unbalanced. Some levels in this game are really long. Something like Shadow's aquatic base is almost impossible not to S rank. All you do is run from room to room battling hordes of enemies. You'll probably be able to get 50,000 points before reaching the goal ring. This goes for a lot of Shadow and Silver levels, where dying some janky death will be the only reason you lose the S rank, because otherwise all you need to do is coast through the level at the already low speed 06 provides and you'll be rewarded for it. Silver levels are harder than Shadow levels to S rank purely because he has to do more platforming and is worse at defending himself than Shadow. Sonic stages have platforming sequences prone to failure and frustrating Mach speed sections where you can barely control yourself. His levels are also on the shorter side compared to Shadow and Silver, so you have to work a lot harder for the S rank. But then the bugginess might come back to haunt you again. Once, I had used Sonic's red gem to slow down the clock to get a sub 10-minute run of Kingdom Valley, and the game just admitted defeat and gave me 0 points for the time bonus. In another game, I could be convinced this was because the designers didn't want you to abuse time-slowing mechanics like this, but this is Sonic 06. The only reason you can even do that is because Sonic's energy meter doesn't drain at all when using special abilities, even though it's supposed to. So the problem with the S-rank experience in 06, beyond the game not being fun to play, is that the one-size-fits-all approach means some levels will be easy to coast through on enemy score alone, like Aquatic Base or Flame Core, and shorter ones like Radical Train or Wave Ocean will be much trickier to figure out since they don't have as many enemies. No matter what, you don't feel like a master blasting through the stage with skillful play, it just feels like running around wailing on enemies with these not very good combat mechanics. Seriously, half the time Shadow's combo attack won't even hit anything, and sometimes will hit the nearest enemy even if you aren't attacking it. I do not know why it works like this. Of course, this next point is a non-gameplay element, but the technical failures of 06 affect even the idea of getting all the S ranks just as much as the sloppy mechanics. The lengthy load screens make stages not fun to revisit no matter what, like how I lost my S rank of End of the World right in the last segment out of 7, which means I would need to sit through 7 more 30-second load screens to work my way back to this point. It's unpleasant. Keeping on the subject of Sonic 06, I'd like to examine the one-size-fits-all approach from the other angle, the fan remake Project Sonic 06 by Chaos X. If you're familiar with me, you know this is my all-time favorite Sonic game. Don't care it's not official, it's a blast to play. I have put hundreds of hours into PO6. The most recent version will be in the description for those who play on PC. But anyway, PO6 fixes the gameplay simply by making every character fun to play as. It's a simple fix, and it goes a long way. It revealed what was already good about the original levels that were buried by terrible controls and technical faults. But when getting all the S ranks in PO6, you run into a new issue. It copies the original game's need for 50,000 points per each stage, but now you're playing as super powerful badass versions of the 06 cast, which makes it supremely easy to get huge combo points, making short work of every S rank. The reward is well worth it as you get bonus powers that make the 3 main hedgehogs even more fun to play as in their stages. But the fun factor in this game purely comes from the joy of speedrunning, not because the ranks are hard to get. When something like SA2 was able to do both. What I think PO6 needs is a new system that designs score challenges around each stage, like Aquatic Base being perhaps 75k and Tropical Jungle being brought down to like 40k. I don't know, but if the game's next and final release wants to make rankings more of a challenging element of the game, then that might be necessary, because the original approach from Retail 06 is just not that great. Which brings me to Sonic Unleashed. Of every game that came out after SA2, I believe Unleashed is the only one that nails what I'm getting at here. If you want to S-rank a level of Sonic Unleashed, you're gonna have to work for it. Unleashed is already one of the hardest 3D Sonic games ever made. The point of the game is that going at breakneck speed is fun, but the challenge is reacting to obstacles that come up. Getting to grips with this alone might take time, but even if you become a master of dodging incoming obstacles, you're still not getting an S-rank. The secret of mastering Sonic Unleashed is each daytime Sonic level comes packed full of hidden shortcuts that are almost completely invisible to the naked eye. You have to experiment to find out where everything is hidden. Each shortcut adds up and saves a lot of time in the run. Arid Sands is one of the best examples where you have to jump on the light dash trail at the beginning and then get on a grind rail with the right timing to avoid the springs that send you backwards. Only to then make you take this shortcut with dash panels hidden off camera to save like 2 seconds. And then the stage keeps doing stuff like that throughout its whole duration. Most of the other daytime Sonic levels also have their own examples of this. The shortcuts at the beginning of Skyscraper Scamper and Jungle Joyride come to mind. Once you have the perfect route through a stage mapped out, the next challenge is the ring bonus. Many Sonic games give you points for each ring you collect, but Unleashed only counts them at the very end of the stage, so you also need to not get hit one time or risk losing the S rank. This means that coming back to Unleashed levels is almost guaranteed to be fun because you have exhilarating speed and reaction-based obstacles, and then you integrate a bunch of shortcuts and then you're tense throughout the whole run because you're trying to make sure you never take damage while keeping the momentum up. It's pretty much perfect if you ask me. I never bothered with getting ranks in Unleashed's extra stages because they're too difficult, but in the main acts, I really love it. It perfects what I was saying about Adventure 2. It offers replayability that feels almost endless because good play still keeps me on my toes over 15 years later. Ironically, the other half of the game falls short though. The Werehog levels were inspired by 3D action games that made good play a crucial part of their formula. See my various Devil May Cry videos for more information. But when you have the Werehog's stats high enough, you can plow through early game enemies and mini-bosses in seconds without exception. The Werehog was definitely in need of some kind of a system that scaled the difficulty with your power level, because getting high ranks with him is quite easy. The only challenge is dying because he has no drop shadow during the platforming sequences. All in all though, Unleashed might have my favorite ranking system in the whole series if you just look at the speed stages. I just like how it's difficult. That's the kind of thing I find fun in a game. I touched on this in my last Sonic video, but I feel like Unleashed's largely mediocre reception on release changed how they designed Sonic games forever. This bums me out because getting the best ranks in Sonic was just never the same, and even by Unleashed, it and SA2 were the only games to make it really fun. So, I've S-ranked Sonic Colors in the past, and fully completing it really made me enjoy it on a whole nother level, but the rankings themselves weren't really the fun part. At their best, I enjoy these rankings when they're a reward for fast-paced, skillful play. Sonic's about the speed factor, right? Well, Sonic Colors is inherently a slower-paced game that is more about platforming. This is a fine approach. I enjoy Sonic Colors quite a bit, but I don't like how in the rankings, Colors outright punishes fast-paced gameplay. Like PO6, if you enjoy speedrunning antics in Sonic games, Sonic Colors allows you to do that. It's just more for intrinsic motivation than because the game rewards you for doing it. The goal of Colors is using the Wisp powers to explore the stages in depth and finding all 5 of the red star rings. This is a totally optional side quest, but each red ring gives you 30,000 points. Getting the S rank comes down to this. Find all 5 red star rings, memorize their locations enough to where you can quickly do it in one seamless run, and the S is yours. Intrinsically, I think looking for red rings works. Searching for them is rewarding, but as stated before, I don't think it makes for the most satisfying replays of the stages, because a lot of that involves going back and forward and up and down in 2D sections rather than keeping the pace going. But that brings us back to the subject that began the video. SA2 was going for something much different than previous games with its action-oriented rank-based gameplay. Sonic Colors is not deficient in how it designs completion like Shadow or 06. It's just different than SA2 when Unleashed. It's rewarding your curiosity and efficiency, not your stylish gameplay. I think it makes completing Colors less fun than Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Unleashed, but that's purely subjective. This is a valid approach to designing rankings because getting them all forces you to engage with the game beyond the bare minimum, just like SA2, but in a new way. It's Sonic Generations where the designers really missed out on a chance to elevate the game. Generations is my favorite officially released Sonic game. I love almost everything about it. It's a perfect tribute to the history of Sonic with fantastic gameplay and levels you can play 1,000 times over and still enjoy. The only issues I have with this game is that it didn't have enough content, the last level is bad, and the ranking system's not great. Getting an S in Sonic Generations merely requires you to beat the stage without dying. This is quite easy to achieve unless you're going for specific timing-based skips. But the levels are not long enough to make restarting feel like a proper punishment. If you know how to play Sonic, you could probably get a majority of the S ranks in Generations on your first try. See, this doesn't do what Colors did well, or what SA2 did well. It's just a formality at this point. The levels are so fun that you don't mind it much, because Generations circles back to Adventure 1 design where running around levels and seeing new routes is inherently fun, to the point where the ranks aren't that important. But if Generations had managed to achieve both that organic level design and challenging rankings, I think the game would be even better. But since the video is running longer than I thought it would, let's wrap this up. Sonic Lost World made the ranking system an optional side mode. To get an S in this game, you need to clear stages within a certain time. Nothing else matters. In a game as platforming-oriented as Lost World was, a ranking system based on clear time complements the game pretty well. This would encourage you to become familiar with the stage layouts and the parkour mechanics more than anything else. It's not how I'd like it to be handled in all games, since I like getting graded on multiple categories, but as I said, I think this made sense for Lost World. Sonic Forces takes more effort to fully complete than Generations, I'll give it that, because if you just blitz through the levels without collecting anything or fighting enemies, you probably won't get an S. But let's not kid ourselves. I never bothered trying to get them all in this game anyway, it's Forces. If I never had to play this game again, it would be too fucking soon. And lastly, you have Sonic Frontiers. The cyberspace levels in this game are like Lost World, where you get an S based on clear time. The game shows off how rankings could do wonders for the series and how often they prefer to do nothing with this potential. Let's start with the negative side. In a vast majority of cyberspace levels, the clear time requirements are just too generous. Getting an S while clearing a stage's other objectives is just too easy. It makes the level a breeze and does not stand out in your mind. The reused assets for visuals don't help either. The point of the game is doing the objectives in cyberspace missions to get vault keys to progress in the open world. So why not make the player work for it? Bite-sized levels like this are perfect for increased difficulty, and I see the potential for it because one of the earliest cyberspace stages does this, 1-2. It's a great level to play because the S-rank clear time is pretty strict. Every time you fail, you'll feel like the goal is within reach, but you need more practice optimizing your route through the stage. I spent time after time trying to beat this level with an S-rank the first time I played it. And for that reason, it was one of the only cyberspace levels I really remembered fondly because completing it was an experience, unlike many of the boring others. I don't mind that it stole level design from Sonic Unleashed for a change because the 1-2 experience feels fresh in a way that the other copies didn't. But what exactly am I getting at here? Well, it's simple. I think there are plenty of ways to design Sonic games that are valid and enjoyable in their own right. Really thinking about what made SA2 work for me allowed me to understand my preferences better. My interest in many games comes from skill mastery and replayability. Giving tough goals to work towards in a game is more to my liking than games that don't. Throughout the 3D series, they've gotten this right a few times and gotten it wrong a few other times, and now I think the upcoming Shadow Generations has the potential to do it really well. The game could just use the same standards as Generations, but that would be mighty disappointing given what I just said about that game a few moments ago. Looking back at the 3D series like this, I hope anyone who didn't really consider this topic before can see it from my point of view and understand why I think this aspect of the games being made kind of difficult but doable would do wonders for the replay value of the games. But that just about does it for my latest Sonic op-ed, if you will. If you agree, disagree, have your own thoughts about the ranking system of Sonic games, let me know below. And once more, before we go, I'd like to thank War Thunder for sponsoring this video. The game is free, and using my link, you'll get access to a bunch of super cool bonus unlockables that are only available for a limited time only, so you'd best get on it. But now I'll close by saying what I always do. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.